No one needs reminding of just how divisive the Star Wars prequels are, but did you know that a lot of the elements from the prequel trilogy that OG fans didn't enjoy were actually sort of planned all along? George Lucas's early musings in the immediate success of Star Wars became the Bible by which the following films and expanded universe material followed. The Making of Star Wars by J.W. Rinsler details much of Lucas's early notes as he attempted to establish his epic universe, and it's pretty wild to see how much made it into the prequels. I'm Ewan, this is Wild Culture Star Wars, and here are 8 Star Wars prequel moments George Lucas planned in 1977. Number 8. C-3PO was built by a child. How did a child, even an extremely powerful one born by the Force, manage to build a factory-spec protocol droid from scratch? A way to avoid this contrivance is to take the claim young Anakin just built a droid as a 9-year-old trying to impress the girl he just met hyperbole. The old faithful expanded universe has ran with that argument before, saying C-3PO was a mass-produced droid whose remains Anakin found and did up. One of the strangest shoehorned elements of the prequels, explained with some actually sound logic. Except it's not later writers, but Lucas who came up with this solution. That's the backstory originally envisioned for 3PO. I'm not even kidding. In 1977, Lucas said that C-3PO was rebuilt by a young child. Nowhere does it say it was Anakin or Darth Vader, remember different people at this point in the story, but it's still an oddly specific prediction. As pre-Episode 1 3PO has little influence on the story, much of what Lucas wrote all those years ago about his origins has become canon as the character's backstory. The droid is 112 years old at the time of Episode 4, exactly what was originally stated in Lucas's notes. Number 7. The Emperor overthrew the Republic using trade laws. It's strange to think that the mighty Galactic Empire had an impact on even outlying systems like Tatooine, where the Republic didn't even exist, even though it was only around for 25 years. Obviously, for old Ben Kenobi to remember what it was like before the Dark Times, it couldn't be centuries old. But with the prequels explicitly showing how recent the Empire's beginnings were, it feels even more indestructible than originally presented. The original notes revealed nothing of this quick timeline and suggesting the Republic had been gone for decades by the time of Episode 4. Yet this was ultimately cut short by the prequels to allow Luke and Leia's birth to coincide with the Empire's. But just because the dates were vague doesn't mean the events were undefined. We can learn the Old Republic was a democratic system, ruled over by a chancellor who was replaced every 4 years once their term was over in those notes. The future Emperor managed to swing it so he could get re-elected with the backing and influence of major galactic corporations, messing with the trade laws. The rise we're told of, with slight bias from Leia, is essentially the entire plot of the prequels, minus the whole Sith influence thing. The old trade laws that made the Phantom Menace's opening crawl so plotting has its genesis here, as does Attack of the Clones' orchestrated conflict intended to increase the Chancellor's powers. Number 6. Darth Vader's past was a mystery. In 1980, everyone learned that a lot of Darth Vader's past was incredibly subjective, but even before the series-defining decision to make him Luke's father, Lucas was keen to play up the character's mysterious past. Although R2-D2 had the Death Star plans and the gang ended up in the space station, he'd have been silly to not have checked their records. And according to 3PO, he did. He tells us there were detailed files on everyone on board, except for Darth Vader, of whom there was no trace. Although in the original film he felt partially like Grand Moff Tarkin's lapdog, this is something that points towards the grander power at play. He's close to the Emperor and far from just another member of the military brass. It seems obvious, but given how the character had proven a major draw in the film's box office haul, Lucas probably wanted to formalize it in his writings. Even though Obi-Wan was also very open about Vader's past, if not missing some key details, this decision to highlight his mystery shows how Vader's place in the saga was starting to shift. As these notes originate in the immediate aftermath of Star Wars' release, this could be the first official trace the story was slowly morphing into that of Darth's life. Number 5. The rebellion was a splinter of the Senate. In the original history, as the Emperor tightened his grip on the Republic, he bribed and blackmailed his way to having half of the systems, 24,372 to be precise in the original count, in his pocket. These corrupt senators turned a blind eye as the Empire rose, leading to the totally for show Imperial Senate that gets dissolved in A New Hope. Those on the other side of the aisle first tried for political resolution, but Darth Vader swiftly dealt with them, which led to an increasingly radicalized opposition. A major subplot of Revenge of the Sith that was all but cut from the film but is still present in its deleted scenes dealt with the early seeds of the rebellion in a similar manner, featuring Padme conspiring with Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and other future rebels. It's the motivation for her otherwise out-of-the-blue comment on the Separatist legitimacy. It's not well explored in the final film, mind, but the suggestion's definitely there. Interestingly enough, the notes also shed some light on the scope of the rebellion. The group who destroyed the Death Star are described as the militant branch, controversial to the point Bail Organa fell out with his daughter when she joined them, which obviously wasn't the case in future Star Wars efforts, but still, it's an interesting wrinkle all the same. Number 4. C-3PO had his memory wiped. Even with CGI jabber and visual continuity issues smoothed over, A New Hope still presents some unavoidable plot holes, with characters keeping stum on key issues for no apparent reason other than plot necessity. Not much can be done about wise exposition giver Ben, but Lucas had a good stab at explaining blabbermouth C-3PO not knowing who Vader is by retroactively giving him a memory wipe. Narratively simplistic, it's skirting very close to All My Circuits amnesia from Futurama. It does the job of tying up a loose end that was created by the prequel's lack of foresight. However, as one of the better written excerpts from Lucas's notes reveal, 3PO was always intended to have a heavily influenced view on the world. Talking about his relationship with R2, Lucas uses the first-person style of these notes to have some fun in suggesting, but not confirming, some less galaxy-shattering events. Less ambiguously, the passage also explains why the Tantive Force translator wasn't aware of the consular ship's ambassador. He was specifically programmed to not reveal any information on Leia. Although, in explaining that one piece of erroneous dialogue, we get the question of why he needed a whole memory wipe in the first place. Number 3. R2-D2 was originally a ship repair droid. In the original trilogy, astromech droids come across as the galaxy's version of a Swiss Army knife. They can store data, fit perfectly into various designs of space fighters, can access any information port, and even have a periscope. But while R2 developed into a real but non-irritating Deus Ex Machina, the original blueprints were always in Lucas's mind. When we first meet R2-D2 in The Phantom Menace, he's a repair droid on a Naboo cruiser, and that's exactly what his primary function was always intended to be. According to 3PO, he is sent to the outside of the ship to fix various systems. That's just one of many examples of Lucas showing really strong understanding of the intricacies of his new universe. Not simply answering queries with space mumbo-jumbo, things are explained with historical accuracy and in-depth terminology. That the Millennium Falcon was built on Krell for Corellian space shippers, or that C-3PO got an XB-21 upgrade after the Battle of Yavin are needlessly in-depth mined, while Han's backstory, he was a slave raised by travelers, is incredibly fleshed out. You just get a sense that there was a real desire to get a Tolkien-level continuity to the galaxy far, far away, with as much time devoted to the little details as the broad strokes even as far back as 1977. That's pretty emblematic of Star Wars on the whole, and it's best never letting the grand space epic overshadow its brilliant characters. Number 2. The Imperial Army was built in secret. It was a long-standing notion from the original expansion that the future Emperor had been building a large army in secret ready for the rise of the Empire. The Republic couldn't have had an army because it was meant to be protected by the Jedi, but the Empire it became does, so a secret one is simple but effective. However, the execution of the idea in the films became bogged down by another. Clones had been trying to find their way into Star Wars since the very beginning. A throwaway reference to the Clone Wars is one of the fans' few hints to the pre-Empire world, while Boba Fett was originally envisioned as part of a run of genetically produced super soldiers. They finally got their on-screen debut in Attack of the Clones, where this classic sci-fi trope was mixed with the secret army. And number 1. Midi-chlorians allow Jedi to use the Force. Okay, so what is the most derided element of Episode 1, and by extension, the whole prequel trilogy? Midi-chlorians. They're pretty harmless, all things considered, but still, a lot of fans did not warm to the idea at all when The Phantom Menace dropped in 1999. But as you can see in this 1977 quote from Lucas here, midi-chlorians have their roots much further back in the franchise's history, predating the much more accepted Sith Rule of Two and Chosen One prophecy by over 20 years. In Lucas's own words, it is said that certain creatures are born with a higher awareness of the Force than humans. Their brains are different. They have more midi-chlorians in their cells. There it is, black and white. Midi-chlorians were always canon. Hearing it explained matter-of-factly by the younger George, they suddenly make a lot more sense. Midi-chlorians aren't an attempt to rationally explain the Force and demystify the magic. They're a simple explanation as to why some people can use it and others can't. And those were 8 prequel moments George Lucas had Agatha'd all along, all the way back in 1977. What's your favourite fact about the making of the original Star Wars? Let us know in the comments below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more. I did the hand wavy thing off camera, so you sort of have to do it now, just trust me. Either way, I've been Ewan. Catch my Star Wars takes elsewhere on Twitter @EwanRuinsThings, and I will see you next time. May the Force be with you.